Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Chafee. I'm here with a very special guest, Professor Bart Kay, who I'm very excited to speak to. Professor Kay has been in academia for over 25 years, holds 3 advanced degrees, and has been doing very, very good work explaining the actual science behind our metabolism and why a carnivorous diet is not only appropriate, but the most beneficial and optimal. Professor Kay, thank you very much for joining us.
So I spent, as you rightly said, I spent about 26 years as a senior academic teaching various aspects of health science over the years.
Okay, here he's claiming he has 26 years experience as a senior academic at the college level. But if you look at his LinkedIn resume, he was a teacher's assistant in 2002. 2007 to 2011, 3 years, he was a senior tutor, which is a low-level educator at the college level. And in 2012, he worked for 11 months as an associate lecturer at a UK university. Now, this is the lowest level of academic rank. He then went on to work 3 years in 2013 as a senior lecturer at a UK university. Now, a senior lecturer is 2 ranks below a professor in the UK rankings. Now, after this 3-year stint as a senior lecturer in UK, he seems to have dropped out of academia. This only gives him about 6 to 7 years of experience at lower level academic rankings at universities. So it looks like he was kind of puffing his resume, as you can kind of see. Never was a professor. He was in and out of these little teaching stints and only made it to senior lecturer, which is 2 ranks below professor.
I think that's what the issue is here.
That the guy's a professor, although we can't find him having taught anywhere.
Well, your lack of searching skills, your lack of checking into someone's background skills is not my problem at all. I don't need to justify my professional past to you or anybody else, Greg. It's a matter of public record. If you want to go and check with an actual proper decent check, you will find that I have a 25-year history in academia as a senior academic on 4 different continents. Whether you like that or not, it's a fact. Sorry about that. It says I am or am not currently employed as a university professor. I don't mind telling you this part. This is fine. I am not currently employed as a university professor.
Well, which is it, Bart? You're either a professor or you're not.
Oh my God, you are stupid. And this is covered in my video, Greg. And you know it's covered in my video because you said you've watched my video in full several times. Did you only watch it so that you could count how many times I called you a cunt, Greg? Is that what it was? Because if you'd listened to the video in full, you'd know that this is covered. Professor is not a job description, buffhead. It is a rank. It's a rank in academia. And you're entitled to use a rank in academia when you no longer work in academia. Demonstrably, absolutely, unequivocally, not even just false, but lies. Complete and absolute lies. Let me give you an example of an association. The sale of ice creams at a beach resort, you will find that to be highly correlated with reports of people reporting to the medical staff at that resort with sunburn-related issues on any given day. The more ice creams that are sold on any given day, the more cases of sunburn are going to report. There will be a strong, positive, and predictable relationship between those 2 variables. Okay, does that mean if I just stay away from the ice cream stand, I'm safe from sunburn? Is that what that means? No, Cyrus.
Okay, there's our esteemed senior lecturer completely failing at a correlation doesn't equal causation example. He goes on about how there's a clinic at a resort and people are coming in with sunburns, and there's also nearby there's there's an ice cream shop, and somehow ice cream and sunburn is a correlation. He didn't even show a correlation. First of all, most of the people going into that clinic with sunburns didn't have ice cream. Secondly, there are ice cream parlors everywhere. There's ice cream parlors everywhere. There's ice cream parlors in malls in downtown Seattle, Washington. Did those cause sunburns? Then this guy's a lecturer. This guy's an esteemed senior lecturer of science. Here's a decent example of correlation doesn't equal causation. Let's take the entire population and let's divide it up into people who have run a marathon in the last 5 years and people who have not run a marathon in the last 5 years. Now let's track those people and let's see what their longevity is. And if we do that, we're going to see that the people who did do the marathons lived longer, okay? All the people who did marathons during that 5-year period, they had a longer average longevity. Now, does that mean running a marathon makes you live longer? No, because if you looked into the data further, you would see that 100% of the morbidly obese people didn't run a marathon. You'd see that 100% of the people born with muscular disease didn't run the marathon. You'd see that 100% of the people who had debilitating strokes didn't run the marathon. And what you'd realize is that you have to be healthy enough to run a marathon before you run a marathon. And so there is this health filter in there, so the conclusion you come up with is that the correlation of running a marathon and longevity is not causal. Now, one of the main assertions that Bart Kay, we'll call him Bart Kay, not Professor Bart Kay, because we've already established that he's not a professor. One of his key assertions is that calories in, calories out is a myth. His assertion is you can eat as much meat as you want and you'll reach this homeostasis state of perfect body fat and healthy body fat. In fact, he claims in January of this year, when he went on a carnivore diet and lost 30 pounds, he gorged himself on meat for 2 weeks and still lost weight.
Are really good, are really reliable, are really powerful. It is hugely problematic and difficult to overeat on protein and animal fat. It's tough. I did it actually for 2 weeks at the beginning of this year.
Yes.
In the first 2 weeks of January, because there's this thing that we do at the beginning of a transition to 100% carnivore called priming, where basically what we do is we vastly grossly overeat for 2 weeks solid. And what that does is it repletes our bodies with all the nutrient that we may have been missing, and it gives us the psychological control back. It's also a bit of a
it's like a reset as well, like resetting your body.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about your carnivore challenge, 100% carnivore challenge, is that, and this is going back to calories, is that you actually, I think you ate 5 times the amount of calories.
Yep.
But you managed to drop body fat, gain muscle at the same time. So how can you explain that for those that are just hell-bent on that calories matter and that we have to count our calories? How does that work?
What people need to understand is that calories, by their very definition, by their operational definition, by the way they are measured, they are scientifically absolutely clearly defined. What are calories? Calories is a measurement of heat. Energy is a construct. Energy.
Now, one of the things he says is that man has been on a carnivore diet for hundreds of thousands of years, mainly carnivore diet, mostly carnivore diet, and this is true. Now let's put on our thinking caps, let's put on our logic caps, and take a few of the assertions that he's made and put them together and see what we can come up with. Now, his first claim is that you can eat all the meat you want, you don't have to count calories, and you'll have this perfectly healthy homeostasis version of healthy body fat. And the second statement he made is that we've been eating this carnivore diet for hundreds of thousands of years. I want you to think for a minute about bears, mainly the bears up in Alaska who gorge themselves on salmon during the fall salmon run season. And what they do is they eat tons of this salmon and they put on body fat. Now they do this so that they can have plenty of body fat to live through the winter time, so that they can survive off this body fat during the lean winter time. Now, human beings, they didn't hibernate like bears, but they did have to kind of hibernate during winter time, during lean times, and they needed to rely on stored body fat to survive during these lean times. So let's put everything together. We ate this carnivore diet for hundreds of thousands of years. We hunted, and the hunting there would be feast and famine. The herds would come in and there would be all kinds of feast And then wintertime would become, and there would be this lean period. Now, if we eat all this meat and we don't put on any body fat, how did man survive during early periods? This goes completely contradictory to evolutionary biology. Humans and other animals need to put on fat to survive lean times, to survive the winter time. So if man ate this carnivore diet for hundreds of thousands of years, and you can eat all the meat you want and not put on fat, how in the world did we survive? How did we survive lean times if we don't put on fat? This goes to show that his assertions don't make any sense, that man and many forms of mammals can put on fat while eating carnivore diets. And they do this, they need to do this, to survive during lean times. It's evolutionary biology. It's the reason we survived. One of the key mechanisms that lets man and other species survive, by putting on stores of fat to survive during lean times. Now, Bart made a video about the 4 key things that you need to do for optimal health. And one of the things he says you need to do for optimal health is grounding. Now, grounding is this ridiculous new age assertion that if you ground your body to the earth, that these electrons are going to come up and heal you and do so much good for your health. Now, I looked up these studies that he shows about how grounding is good for your health, and they're pathetic. One study uses 8 subjects, one uses 12 subjects. Pathetically low. There is no evidence to grounding, but it's one of the 4 key things, guys. It's one of the 4 key things you need to do for your health.
Okie dokie class, thanks for joining me for 5 minutes or less. Once again, today we're talking about 4 health hacks I think all human beings should undertake to maximize the likelihood that your health, vitality, well-being and all of that kind of stuff will be maximized. What is health hack number 3? Health hack number 3 is electrically ground yourself to the earth for as much time in every 24 hours as you can possibly achieve realistically, remotely in your lifestyle. Very, very important. The reasons for which I have covered in another video, 5 minutes or less, very, very recently. In fact, I just recorded it. So that'll be probably arriving on my channel on the same day. So go and find that one and learn all about electrical earthing and grounding. About 300,000 or so years as human beings specifically. Most of that time we've been electrically connected to the earth. We've walked around with bare feet. We've slept on the ground. We've had an electrical connection with the earth. It seems our physiology is designed that way, in a way that we don't perhaps necessarily understand that well at this point. So proposed effects of electrical earthing, electrical grounding that have been reported in the peer-reviewed literature. None of these studies are perfect, nor are any of them remotely what I would call great studies in terms of cause and effect. The attraction of the electrons to the outer membrane of the red blood cells, thus coating them with a mutually repellent layer of electrons, thus meaning that all the blood cells spread out evenly amongst the blood, and thereby there's no clumping and the effective viscosity goes down. Fantastic.
So Bart, does grounding work?
Does it work? Who knows? Is it worth trying? I would say so, absolutely. I certainly do. Pim and I sleep grounded, have done for several years now, and we swear by it. Well, I do anyway. Well, I don't swear anymore because I'm not allowed to.
Okay, let's look at another one of these 4 all-important life hacks. Go, Bart.
What is the second most important thing that you can do to maximize the likelihood of your health? It is the consumption of a specific range of nutraceutical products available at the address at the bottom of the screen right now. These products are designed to cause your bone marrow to release your adult stem cells into your bloodstream, whereupon they do magics. They can tone down inflammation. They can instruct cancer cells to kill themselves off. They can differentiate into brand new cells of any kind in your body except sperm or eggs, and they do that with full-length telomeres. They really are magic. You should absolutely get those into you. I'd be doing that sooner than yesterday if I were you.
Okay, you can see he wants you to take this stem cell supplement, this miracle stem cell supplement that's so good for your health. It's miraculous. It cures cancer. It's magical. It does everything. And he gives you a link to an affiliate account where you can make money when you buy this stem cell supplement. And the link goes to Cereal, which is, Cereal is like an Amway for supplements. It's just a money-making scheme for the supplement hustle. And he gives the affiliate link so you can go and buy this supplement, and he can make money off this supplement that he's recommending. So let's look at this supplement that he's pushing, this stem cell supplement, and you can see it goes for a whopping $70 for a 30-day supply. That's $2.30 per one-day serving. Okay, now let's look at the ingredients that's in this stem cell supplement. And you can see the first ingredient, they call it stem hance, and that's A-floss aquae concentrate. And this is a form of blue algae. And if you go online, you can find this exact same specimen of blue algae. You can get it for $191 for 500 servings if you get the blue algae powder. And that's going to be 38 cents a serving. The second ingredient is spirulina, which you can get in bulk and powdered bulk, and very cheap. Spirulina is very cheap. Now the third ingredient is it's a species of kelp, which is also called wakame, a very small serving of 75 milligrams. And you can get this kelp, which is also called wakame, in powdered form for literally $30 a pound. So it's really pennies per serving. This is the grift that he pushes to his followers. He wants his followers to go pay for this overpriced stem cell supplement that is supposed to be this big miracle that he can make money off of. It's just completely ineffective and overpriced.
Hi, this is Paul Knopfler at UC Davis School of Medicine. I've been a professor here for almost 15 years. My lab does work on stem cells and cancer. At the same time, I've been studying the different products that are out there and injections and things like that that are being sold by different stem cell clinics and other kinds of firms out there. Kind of doing a fact check on these different things, posting on my blog, The Niche. So today's segment is actually on what seems to be a fairly hot topic, and that is what's called stem cell supplements. So the claims related to these are that taking a pill or drinking some kind of liquid solution will in some way help your stem cells and by extension, help your overall health. So the bottom line kind of question is, do stem cell supplements work to help you be healthier, to do something with your stem cells? And the simple answer is basically no, unfortunately. So one of the things these stem cell supplements are claiming is that they have sort of these anti-inflammatory or anti-aging kind of properties. That's pretty much bunk.
Now, in his whole calories in, calories out assertion, he confuses and conflates the calorie system to try to confuse everybody and get him to believe his assertions. He confuses and conflates the scientific definition of calories to try to confuse everyone so that they'll believe what he says. So the original definition of a calorie is the metric measurement of heat energy. It's the heat it takes to heat 1 gram of water, 1 degree Celsius, and that's 1 calorie. Now in the imperial system, it's BTUs or British thermal units, and that's the amount of heat energy it takes to heat 1 pound of water, 1 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, food is called chemical energy or potential energy. Now, scientists wanted to gauge exactly how much energy there is in food. So they came up with a method where they take an amount of food and they vaporize it. They turn that chemical energy into heat. Then they measure that heat using the calorie heat measurement system to gauge how much chemical energy is in that food. He then asserts that since we use this vaporization to heat method to gauge calories, and that the human body uses a different system to process that chemical energy or potential energy that's in food, that the whole thing is just debunked. He's trying to claim this whole thing is debunked. But this is very sound scientific method of measuring the chemical energy in food. And now he does this to try to debunk the calorie measurement system of food, and he tries to confuse everyone, and it's just a bunch of gobbledygook.
This is ideology from another, basically for those who don't know, Israel here is another calories in, calories out crackpot. I'll deal with that when he drops that ridiculous bombshell a bit later on in the video. So right from the start, Michael, just nonsense. Sorry, son, wrong. And goodness me, giving us your opinion, Michael, which is vacuous, ill-educated, and arrogant in the extreme, actually. Because you're also now about to start telling us all about calories. You buffhead. You absolute ass monkey. What's next?
Under some conditions and some special circumstances, they can be very different, but usually they're very similar. So it is not true that you can like eat 5 steaks a day of protein on top of a normal diet and be like, it's protein, bro. There's no way I can gain fat from it. That's fucking wrong.
Correct. That is wrong.
But in any case, number 2, what actually causes fat gain and net weight gain is eating more calories than you expend.
No, it isn't, son. No. Calories are heat. They are defined as heat. They are measured as heat. They are heat. Calories are not a measurement of the energy contained and available to a human being via the metabolic absorption of nutrients in our diet or from anywhere else. Human beings cannot encapsulate heat and use that for metabolic process. We require chemical energy in the form of carbohydrates, fats, and to a much lesser degree, proteins. Okay? No, son. Calories do not affect the human body composition. Only effective energy intake does that, and calories and effective energy intake are not interconvertible terms. No, they're not, you see, because human beings are not isolated thermodynamic systems. Okay? So, if your goal is to run a mile in under 4 minutes, then you need to be able to endure that pace of running for that period of time. How would you train for that? Well, you would do that. You would run at that pace until you are exhausted, which, if you're not yet able to run a mile in under 4 minutes, the time to exhaustion will be sooner than 4 minutes. Then what you do in your next training session, which should not occur until 48 hours after your last one, by the way, under any circumstances, you should then go and run that same speed again until you are exhausted, which will be shorter than 4 minutes, but closer to 4 minutes than the time before, probably. And then over a period of training, you will approach the ability to run that 4 minutes at that speed. That is the correct way to train for that specific endurance capacity. That is how you should do it. But we'll talk more about that as the video progresses.
Man, let me tell you, as an endurance athlete with 4 decades of experience competing, I got first place trophies in triathlon, bike racing, mountain bike racing. This was hard to watch. It's such, I mean, the gobbledygook is getting real thick nowadays. And by the way, you Bart fans who want to come in the comment section and say, well, look at you. Here's a recent picture of me and here's a recent picture of your boy. So that's that. Anyway, this competition exercise advice, I just can't. So I'm going to let Dr. Seiler take it from here.
No pain, no gain. This popular slogan has been described as a modern American mini-narrative, and I grew up with it. But when it comes to training the body to endure, to run, ski, cycle, row, or swim faster, longer, this slogan and the recipe for development that it suggests is just wrong, destructively wrong. Choose to remove cells or even entire organs from an exercised organism to understand these mechanisms. I did this myself in my doctoral studies many years ago. I studied hearts, rat hearts, mind you, but always with the goal of better understanding human physiology. Specialized laboratories and highly reductionist approaches like this have served our field well, but they have limitations, serious limitations. Because when we leave the control of the laboratory and go out into the real world where training occurs, our short-term controlled studies don't always give us an accurate understanding of a complex, long-term process in the laboratory. And I knew she was a well-trained endurance athlete, better trained than me. But what she did next surprised me. She came to the bottom of a short but steep hill, and instead of running up the hill, she started walking briskly. And then when she reached the top, she continued running again. Now, personally, I have never met a hill during training that I didn't at least try to run up, panting and straining all the way. No pain, no gain. So why did this woman, who was well-trained, choose to walk instead of run that day? And then, later, I was reading a newspaper article and an interview of the national team cross-country skiing coach at the time. He was the coach of true titans of endurance with Olympic gold medals and off-the-charts laboratory test results on their resume. But he said, we do not train at medium hard intensity. It's too much pain for too little gain. Now, this was fundamentally opposed and different from what I had been taught to believe from laboratory studies. So I realized I was going to have to leave the comfort of the laboratory and study athletes in their laboratories, where out on the forest trails and skating ovals and hills and lakes, where they trained and tested themselves daily. How did the best endurance athletes actually train every day over weeks and months and years? Over 6 or 7 decades, hundreds and even thousands of athletes have contributed to a kind of optimization process. It's all quite Darwinist, really. In the high-performance sport world, training methods that give consistent results survive, and those that don't, well, they fade away and become extinct. Distinguishable intensity zones emerge, and I'm going to call them green, yellow, and red. Pretty simple. Green, low intensity, low perceived exertion, relatively comfortable talking pace. Yellow, somewhat hard to hard, short response only, and kind of high perceived exertion. And then red, hard, high intensity, one more minute, gasping pace. So using these 3 intensity zones from careful physiological testing, we then have cooperated with scientists from different countries, and we've quantified the training of hundreds of athletes in cycling, cross-country skiing, rowing, and distance running. And we can ask the question, is no pain, no gain the way the best athletes train? The answer is no, absolutely not. This is the basic intensity distribution that emerges from studying the best in the world. Across different sports, different countries, male and female, about 8 out of every 10 of their training sessions, many training sessions, are performed in their green zone. Now, the rest can be quite demanding, but it's like that Norwegian coach said so many years ago, the best athletes don't train very much in that medium intensity zone. Let's look at a few examples. This is Marit Bjorgen. She's the all-time Winter Olympian, male or female. 8 gold, 4 silver, and 3 bronze medals. She allowed sports scientists in Norway to digitize and analyze her entire training career and publish it internationally. And one of the scientists that was involved was a former national team teammate who became a doctoral student. I thought that was pretty cool. Here is her endurance training intensity distribution during her 5 most successful years of competition. Hundreds of hours spent in the green zone build the foundation for those red zone performances that were among the best in the history.
Okay, in conclusion, I just want to say that the scientific method is to keep an open mind. You start with an unbiased, clean slate, and you take in information, and you view everything with a healthy dose of skepticism. You see this information and this data, and it suggests this and that, and we question it, and we don't know what the next 50 years of research is going to bring, so we always keep an open mind, and we always put a question mark behind everything. So when you see these carnivore extremists and these vegan extremists say that they know for certain that their method is absolutely for sure the best way, you just got to know that that's not true, and you just keep an open, like I say, you just keep an open mind.
Even if it goes completely in the opposition of something that he was a huge proponent of and was part of the foundational infrastructure of his previous arguments, which frankly I found pretty, impressive, because a lot of people would not do that because it's fucking embarrassing when you're a high-level professional and you've literally written a book about something and you have to go back and correct yourself. So again, she is basing her opinions off of some old fucking Paul Saladino content, as well as all of these carnivore diet zealots who think carbs are the enemy. You only got to eat high quality, nutritious red meat. That's all you got to fucking do. I made a video over a year and a half ago now, and I've talked about this many times, even prior to that as well, about free testosterone levels getting destroyed on keto and carnivore diets. And this is something I've noticed through longitudinal data from many individuals, especially highly regarded guys in the space. Ben Greenfield, Paul Saladino, this fucking guy, I think it was Carnivore Kurt. Some of these individuals that are very forthcoming about putting out their blood work and whatnot, and were prominent proponents of keto diet or carnivore diet. And they would, constantly show their blood levels of disproportionately crashed free test levels with sky-high SHBGs, binding protein levels that are equivalent to that of a fucking woman, and it would constantly go overlooked. And they would say dumb shit like, oh, it's fucking your sensitivity to tests goes up, so you don't need higher free tests, and blah, blah, blah. When in reality, the reality was that their long-term keto diets and carnivore diets were actually slowly butt-fucking them. What they believe to be representative of the highest quality information, even if it goes against their previous hardcore cemented stances that they put out in the past. So I highly recommend you watch this video. If you want to see how substantial it is, by the way, you have guys with high total T levels, good fucking testosterone production, but borderline hypogonadal or literal hypogonadal free test levels as a result of ridiculous binding protein production, and seemingly not understanding why And then, I kind of elaborate why, carbohydrate ingestion may be, or just a balanced diet approach would be prudent for individuals who are looking to optimize health and performance. And more recently, Paul Saladino has come out with a controversial thoughts video, The Dangers of Long-Term Ketogenic Diets, where he essentially shits on the original stance and actual current stance of a lot of carnivore diet zealots. And it's kind of interesting because he is like the premier face of the carnivore diet at this point, essentially. And he essentially is stomping on the idea of something that is like the forefront, like infrastructure of a lot of these people's like entire belief systems, and basically saying that it is now something he's doing to optimize his health and performance, to implement carbohydrates as well as certain things like fruit and honey, which it's like, that's fucking mind-blowing for a carnivore diet zealot to be like, oh my God, our fucking leader is betraying us. And some of them actually act like that. They don't want to be even consider this as a possibility because they're so close-minded. So I'll let you listen to him, and he sort of reflects what I've been talking about for a while now.
My reverse T3 was 15, and looking at my other labs, you can see my FSH and my LH were okay. But
so here he's going through his old lab work when he was like pure carnivore.
But my free testosterone was 4.64, which is a little on the low side.
4.64, a little on the low side. You're literally a fucking 80-year-old hypogonadal man right now. Like, that's what your fucking free test is.
And my total testosterone was 562, kind of on the low side. And then
562, it's in range, it's reasonable. There's sufficient Leydig cell stimulation going on. There's not a, deficiency of luteinizing hormone. Your pituitary seems to be working fine. So why is it that your free test is fucking hypogonadal, bro? He knows, and he's going to tell you why.
I want to point out my sex hormone binding globulin of 113. So my SHBG was quite high throughout all of the time that I was in ketosis.
Look at this shit. 123 on fucking in 2019 and 113 here. Ruthless, dude. Ruthless.
So that was when I was fully carnivorous. Now, if you compare that to labs 1 year later, in July of 2020, you can see my sex hormone binding globulin with the inclusion of carbohydrates is now 59. 59. So it's essentially half of what it was. I'll talk about that a little bit, but I do think that there is good clinical and research evidence that ketogenic diets long-term elevate SHBG, which leads to a lower free testosterone. You'll see that my total testosterone is now 742, or was in July of 2020. It remains there, 700 to 800. And my free testosterone was 64 in July of 2020. All of these improved significantly with inclusion of carbohydrates in my diet.
That's kind of my advice, is keep an open mind, know that you don't know, and that's the smartest thing that you can do, is know that you don't know for sure anything, and don't listen to the gobbledygook.